Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the EOB podcast. So last weekend, we have the release of three movies, Why One at least. We have Wonder Park, then there is 5 Feet Apart, and then there is the actioner Captive State. Let's see how those movies did at the box office. Alright, let's jump right in. Coming in at number 1 is Captain Marvel. It repeated for the second weekend in a row in the top spot. Pulled in $69 million in second weekend. Drop off about 55%, which is actually pretty good for a movie that opened so huge. Domestic gross right now is $266 million, and worldwide it has already grossed $762 million, with 495 of that from overseas. So it's doing very well here, and overseas doing gangbusters as well. So I think, it's not out of the realm of possibility that this movie would probably get pretty close to the $1 billion barrier. And, this is a movie, is the origin story of, Captain Marvel, a character that Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson, called to, help out with Thanos at the end of, the previous Avenger movie, in Infinity War. So in Endgames, she's gonna play a major role. This sets her up, introduces the character for what she will do in the next Avengers movie. So yeah, it's doing pretty well. It didn't open as high as I projected movies do. I say 170 million to 180 million opening because of how well Black Panther did. Black Panther also came out of the blue. Also, it's not exactly an origin story. It is a continuation story, but Captain Marvel is an origin story. So, I said, there might be some bits and pieces for fans, at least the superhero movie fans, to chew on until they get to the meat of the matter and, in the story arc, and that is, Avengers Endgame. And, it didn't open as high, opened to 153 million, which is still pretty good, because it is, female lead. We have these news story coming out with internet trolls trying to sink this movie. So it did well despite that. And, didn't do as high as, a Black Panther. But then again, this is an origin story, and it's kind of like you can miss this movie sort of, and not miss out on the Avengers Endgame. So, that's what I'm saying. Didn't tie up as much. It didn't progress the story as much in the larger scheme. In these major, the story arc. So I think that's why the movie didn't open that high. Because you can miss this and not miss anything else. In the larger story. At least that's my take. Alright, so pretty good second weekend. I expect this movie to continue to do well in the third weekend as well. Alright, let's move on to number 2, which is one of the new releases last weekend, and it is the animation by Paramount Studio, Wonder Park. It's animation, the animation is good. Like I said, I expect this movie to open somewhere in the, let's see, where did I have the movie opening to? 10 to 15 million opening, and it did, I believe, just right there. I mean, it opened to about 16 million, which is kind of like near the upper end of my projections there, 10 to 15 million, because I expect that Captain Marvel to still pull in the chunk of the box office, and it did, right? Nearly 70 million in the second weekend. So scraps for the rest of the movies, and the other studios kind of anticipated this, and they released like a couple of these movies, kind of like sort of throwaway. And for this Wonder Park to open, to 16 million, it's kind of like, above my expectations. And I don't think this Wonder Park is that expensive to make. Probably again in the 70 million range, if not lower, right? Like the animation's budget has been going down lately, right? And I don't think this is one of these state of the art. Story is actually pretty good about a kid who finds a theme park that came to life. She used to play these games with her mom, right? With this theme park, make-believe theme park, and she found that these creatures that populated the theme park came to life, etc. So, and she's out there to save them from zombie monkeys, along with friends from the theme park. So, yeah, did pretty well. Better than I expected, right? 16 million in the second weekend of Captain Marvel is actually pretty good. Number 3 is another of the new releases, 5 Feet Apart. It did better than I expected, actually. I said this movie could probably pull in 3 to 5 million because it is in the YA genre, and YA genre hasn't been doing well recently. It's based on a book. Even though it's based on a book, it doesn't guarantee success, and we've seen a lot of these movies that are based on books kind of sink at the box office, and this one managed to defy expectations because, again, this movie does not cost that much to make. It's a drama about two sickly people with I think multiple sclerosis or something like that, and they need to stay apart from each other, like 6 feet apart. Protocol dictates that they need to stay that distance so they don't cross-contaminate each other. If they do, then they die from infection. So that's the title there, 6 feet apart, but this one is 5 feet apart, so they move a little bit closer. A couple with a similar illness find themselves trying to live out a normal life with their illness, and it did better, 13.2 million in its opening frame. So let's see how well it will do in the second weekend, and we can see that it has an A cinema score, so the audience liked it, but only a 54% on the tomato meter. So critically, professional critics didn't think highly of this movie, but people who've seen it liked it. But I think this movie is probably going to experience a drop in the second weekend because usually fans of the movie front load the movie, and then it will the audience will taper off from there. All right, number 4 is How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, which is the third How to Train Your Dragon movie. In its fourth weekend, it pulled in 9.3 million. Experienced a drop-off of 36%, and domestic gross so far is 135 million, and worldwide it is at 466 million with 330 million of that from overseas. In the grand scheme of things, even in domestic gross, it's making less already than the second movie, right? The first movie had a domestic gross of 217 million. The second movie had a domestic gross of 177 million. So you can see the dip there, and this one already has a domestic gross of 135 million, and this is already in its fourth weekend. So it's probably going to close out at 150 or so, 155. So we'll see. Definitely it's going to make less, gross less than the second movie. So we can see that the domestic box office continues to drop. Even worldwide, it probably hasn't opened that wide yet. Or it hasn't had the time to gross money from overseas yet. So it has 333 million from overseas, which is a bit a dip there as well. But give it time, maybe it can gross more. But definitely we can see that the third movie had taken a dip overseas as well. Worldwide, first movie is 494 million. The second movie 621 million. So you can see that it went up worldwide. And then a third movie, I expect it to kind of drop back down. It won't reach the height of 621 million for this third movie. All right, let's move on to number 5, which is Tyler Perry's Madea Family Funeral, which is the final Madea movie, supposedly. It pulled in 8.1 million in its third weekend, nearing 60 million domestic. And let's see. It hasn't opened that wide overseas yet, so we're getting around the 60 million figure for this latest Tyler Perry's Madea movie. All right, number 6 is No Manches Frida 2, which is a Spanish language movie. Surprisingly, that it popped up in the top 10 it's because it's Spanish. You normally see these movies once in a while pop up, and normally they're from they're Indian movies, right? But in these rare cases, we see a Spanish language movie like this one, Frida 2. It's sort of like a continuation of the first movie, where a teacher, male teacher, got in a relationship crisis with his current wife. Was it ex-wife? I'm not sure, but in any case, relationship crisis, and his counterpart, ex, arrives, and then they have to duke it out in sort of like a spring break setting where students went onto this beach, and they compete in various sports. And open to 3.9 million And I expect this movie. I don't know. We'll see if it can hold up, right? Because it is a niche a movie because of the language barrier, right? And there is a sizable Spanish speaking audience. There is subtitle as well, so for people who want to watch this movie and couldn't understand the language, there are subtitles. So we'll see how well it does, if it will continue to pop up in the top 10 for Frida 2. No Manches Frida 2. All right, number 7 is a disappointment for me. Is Captive State, a movie that I thought would do better than what it did. A movie starring John Goodman, Ashton Sanders, about alien invasion. Directed by Rupert Wyatt. It's an action movie, sci-fi action movie. I thought this movie could probably open somewhere in the 10 million-ish range or so, right? But it only opened to 3.2 million. Like I said, disappointing. Of the 3 wide releases, it has the lowest opening. Because why? Like I said, John Goodman and Ashton Sanders are not big draw, right? So that's why the opening is so low, even though it has a sci-fi element to it. But the sci-fi elements are not kind of state of the art. People didn't pay to watch these special effects for this movie. All right, even No Manches Frida 2 made more per theater than Captive State, right? Frida 2 only opened in like 472 theaters, but Captive State opened in over 2,000, right? So Frida 2 made more than Captive State, so you can see the demand for this movie there, right? The interest level for Captive State. Again, I blame the lack of a big name star to anchor this movie, and John Goodman, wow, he could do it at some point. I don't think he's right for this movie, to anchor this movie. So yeah, that's why Captive State has such a low opening, way off from my 10 million projection. Alright, number 8 is the Lego Movie 2, the second part. It pulled in 2.1 million in this 6th weekend, right? Drop off about 45%. Domestic gross is about 101 million. Hey, it broke the 100 million barrier. And worldwide, it is at 171 million, with 70 million of that from overseas. So as you can see, the gross for the Lego brand has been decreasing. This is the first movie was a huge surprise. It made over, let's see, how much did it make? The first movie, opened to nearly 70 million. Went on to make 257 million domestically and 469 million worldwide. Budget is 60 million. Supposedly, for the Lego Movie 2, the budget is around 100 million, which is a bit higher. And it doesn't look like it's going to be able to repeat the box office success of the first movie, right? Way off there, right? 101 million right now is a far cry from 257 million. We talked about that. We will know for sure when the mainline Lego movie comes out, if the luster is off the Lego brand. And right there, it's proof that the luster is off. I'm sure if they keep the budget, continue to keep the budget low, they're going to make money on these type of movies, because these movies play well on secondary markets like streaming, home video, etc. All right, let's move on to number 9 is Alita Battle Angel. Put in 1.9 million, drop off of about 41% from the previous week. Domestic gross is about 82 million. So it's increasingly unlikely that it'll cross the 100 million barrier domestically, right? But it's doing better overseas. 312 million in the overseas box office for a worldwide total of 394 million, and the budget is 170 million. So not a huge money maker for Fox, right? 170 million budget. I mean, supposedly a conventional wisdom is like you need to make twice of the budget worldwide for it to break even. Is it twice? Yeah, it's kind of a little bit above twice, so it kind of broke even, but it has to make this money back through the secondary markets. All right, let's close out the top 10 with Green Book. Continues to hold well, but you can see that it took a dip right there. The Oscar bump is wearing off. So and it pulled in 1.3 million in its 18th weekend, right? Drop off about 50%. Domestic gross is about 82 million so far, right? It's still going, right? But you can see that it's slowing down. And worldwide it is at 275 million with 192 million from the overseas. So one of these rare movie dramas that doing very well overseas. It started off as one of these platform releases, to build a buzz, and it did. It got the Oscar bump, and it continues to do well in the theaters, right? And surprisingly, it did well overseas as well. Extremely well overseas for a low budget drama. The budget is only 23 million. All right, so that's it for the top 10. Let's move on to the new release this weekend, and we only have one, which is the new horror movie that is written and directed by Jordan Peele, the guy who gave us Get Out last year. Right, so let's jump right in. So the budget for us is around 20 million, so which is not that high. The reviews so far, let me check, let me see. Yeah, so at Rotten Tomatoes, the reviews are 100% so far, so which is pretty good, right? When Get Out was released, the reviews are extremely well, in the upper 90 percentile. It then opened, it opened to about, Get Out opened to about 33 million, went on to make 176 million domestic and 255 million worldwide, and the budget is only 4.5 million. So it was surprising to me when Get Out came out that it kind of like pretty much dominated the box office for a couple of weeks, because it opened on February 24th, 2017, and at that time, studios usually dump all these movies out in theaters along with Liam Neeson movies, right? So in the dark of the winter, we get Out, and it dominated the box office. It was like number one for I don't remember how many weeks, and it continues to to do well at the domestic box office and worldwide as well. So for a movie that cost only 4.5 million to make, but grossed 255 million worldwide, is actually pretty good. So now Jordan Peele is back with another horror movie, that is Us, right? Stars Lupita Nyong'o as a matriarch of a family who returned to a coastal town in California for vacation, right? But then she discovered that these doppelgangers are there to get rid of them, So that's that's the title, Us, right? They have these doppelgangers trying to kill them. Has hints of invasion of the body snatchers, right? So how will this movie do at the box office? It has a good brand, right? Jordan Peele surprised everybody with Get Out, and I think with that movie, everybody is looking forward to what his next project, and that is Us. And I think, and it's another horror movie released around the same time, pretty much a couple of weeks off from Get Out. And trailer looks interesting, looks good, right? A good horror movie. And of course, this movie is targeted toward the African American audience, which are pretty dependable, right? You can see that they made Get Out a success, and then it spread out from there, became mainstream. It's no longer like targeted toward one demographic, and Us has the potential to break out from the African American audience as well. So I think Us is gonna do well. Is it going to open to 33 million? It's possible, right? There's only one new release in theaters, and it's a horror movie, Spring Break, for college students and others. Like I say, this movie has a potential to break out from the just the African American audience. I think it has the potential to go mainstream, and it stars Lupita Nyong'o, which is I believe she is a name right now. She was in, I believe, 12 Years a Slave, and she's in this movie. So mainstream, Jordan Peele, has a brand name now. People are looking forward to his next project, and trailer response is actually pretty good. So I think I'm gonna go with an opening of 30 to 35 million for us. All right, so that's it for this week's podcast. Let's tune in next week to see how I did with my projection. Until then, take care. Bye bye.